Welcome back to the English Daily Podcast. Today we are talking about active listening for better conversations. This topic is useful for English learners because communication is not only about speaking clearly. It is also about understanding people, showing interest, and responding in a natural way. Active listening means you do more than just hear words. You pay attention, notice feelings, and show the speaker that you are truly present. In daily life, this skill can help at work, in friendships, in class, and even during short conversations with strangers. Jake, why do you think active listening is such an important skill?
I think it matters because many people listen only enough to prepare their next answer. They are waiting for their turn to speak instead of really following the conversation. Active listening changes that habit. It helps you understand the main idea, the details, and the emotion behind the words. For English learners, this is especially helpful because listening carefully gives you more time to process vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. It also reduces pressure. When you focus on the other person, you worry less about making the perfect sentence. You become calmer, and calm people usually communicate better.
That is a great point. Let us explain an important vocabulary word here. The verb process means to think about information in an organized way so your brain can understand it. If someone speaks quickly, you may need a few seconds to process what they said. Active listening gives you that space. Another useful word is present. If you are present, your attention is here and now, not on your phone, not on your worries, and not on tomorrow. Many learners think they need more advanced words to sound better, but often they simply need better listening habits to have smoother conversations.
So what does active listening look like in real life? First, you give simple signals that show attention. You can say I see, right, exactly, or that makes sense. These short responses are sometimes called verbal cues. A cue is a small signal that gives information. In conversation, verbal cues tell the other person you are following them. You can also ask short follow-up questions like what happened next, how did you feel, or what do you mean by that? These questions keep the conversation moving and show real curiosity, which is a powerful communication skill.
I like that word curiosity. Curiosity means a strong desire to know or learn something. If you are curious, your listening becomes more natural because you honestly want to hear more. Here is a common problem for learners. Sometimes they think they must say something impressive, so they stop listening and start planning a complicated reply. But a conversation is not a speech contest. It is a shared exchange. A practical tip is to aim for connection, not perfection. If you understand the speaker well and reply simply, the conversation will usually feel more successful than if you use difficult words with poor timing.
Yes, and timing is important. One part of active listening is not interrupting too quickly. To interrupt means to stop someone while they are speaking. In some cultures, quick interruption can sound excited and friendly, but in other situations it can sound rude. A safe habit is to wait 1 or 2 seconds after the other person finishes. That tiny pause helps you check whether they are done and gives your brain time to build a response. It is especially useful in English because native speakers may connect ideas quickly, and learners sometimes miss the final part of the sentence.
Another helpful technique is paraphrasing. To paraphrase means to repeat an idea in your own words. For example, if a friend says I am exhausted because I have too many deadlines this week, you could say so you are really tired because work is intense right now. This kind of response does two things. First, it checks your understanding. Second, it makes the other person feel heard. Feeling heard means someone recognizes your message and your emotion. Paraphrasing is excellent for English learners because it lets you practice the same meaning with different vocabulary.
Let me add another useful expression, pick up on. If you pick up on something, you notice it even if it is not said directly. For example, a person might say I guess everything is fine, but their voice sounds tired or disappointed. An active listener can pick up on that feeling and respond kindly. You might say you sound a little stressed. Do you want to talk about it? That kind of response builds trust. Trust is the belief that someone is honest, reliable, and safe to talk to. Strong listening often creates stronger relationships over time.
This also connects to body language, even though today we are focusing on spoken English. Your eyes, face, and posture can support your words. If you say I am listening but keep checking your phone, your message is weak. Weak here means not effective. On the other hand, if you face the speaker and keep a relaxed expression, your attention feels real. For online conversations, the same idea matters. Looking at the camera sometimes, staying still, and avoiding multitasking can improve communication. Many people think listening is passive, but active listening is actually a very active skill.
I agree. And there is another challenge for English learners: not understanding every word. Many learners panic when they miss one or two words, but active listening teaches you to focus on the general meaning first. This is called the main idea. The main idea is the central message. You can often understand the main idea from context. Context means the situation and surrounding information that help explain meaning. If you miss a word, do not shut down mentally. Keep listening for clues. Later, you can ask a smart question like, do you mean that the project was delayed, or do you mean it was cancelled?
That is such an important strategy. Let us talk about clarification questions. Clarify means to make something clearer or easier to understand. Good listeners know how to ask for clarification politely. You can say, sorry, could you explain that in another way, did you mean this, or I am not sure I understood the last part. These phrases are useful because they are direct but respectful. They also show confidence. Some learners feel embarrassed when they ask for clarification, but it is usually better to ask than to pretend. Pretending may protect you for one moment, but misunderstanding can create bigger problems later.
Absolutely. Active listening is also valuable in professional settings. Imagine you are in a meeting and your manager explains a task. Instead of saying only okay, you could respond with a short summary, got it. You want me to finish the draft by Thursday and send it to the team before noon. That kind of response shows responsibility and attention to detail. Detail means a small but important piece of information. It can prevent mistakes. In job interviews, active listening helps too. When you answer the exact question the interviewer asked, you sound more prepared and more professional.
It helps in friendships as well. Sometimes people do not need advice immediately. They first want empathy. Empathy means understanding and caring about another person's feelings. An active listener can notice when someone wants comfort instead of solutions. For example, if your friend says I had such a hard day, jumping in with advice too fast may not help. A better response might be that sounds really frustrating. Do you want to talk about it, or do you want ideas? This response is gentle, supportive, and clear. It gives the other person choice, which often improves the quality of the conversation.
There is a useful phrase in that example, jump in. To jump in means to enter a conversation quickly, often before enough listening has happened. Sometimes jumping in is helpful, but sometimes it steals space from the speaker. I think many of us do this because silence feels uncomfortable. But silence is not always a problem. A short silence can mean the speaker is thinking. It can also mean they are deciding how honest they want to be. If you stay patient during that moment, the person may share something more meaningful. Patience is a hidden part of strong listening.
Let us give listeners a simple practice routine. First, choose one conversation today where your goal is to listen more than usual. Second, use at least 3 verbal cues such as I see, really, and that makes sense. Third, ask 2 follow-up questions. Fourth, paraphrase one important idea. Finally, notice the result. Did the conversation feel deeper, calmer, or more natural? This kind of small practice builds skill over time. Build skill means improve little by little through repetition. You do not need to change your whole personality. You just need consistent habits that make other people feel respected and understood.
I would add one more exercise for English learners. After a conversation, take 1 minute to reflect. Reflect means to think carefully about an experience. Ask yourself 3 questions. What was the main idea? Which new words or expressions did I hear? When did I feel confused? This reflection turns every conversation into study material. It is also useful to keep a small notebook or phone note with follow-up phrases you want to remember. For example, you could save expressions like so what you are saying is, if I understand you correctly, and can you tell me a bit more about that?
Before we finish, let us mention one mistake to avoid. Active listening does not mean agreeing with everything. You can listen carefully and still have a different opinion. In fact, disagreement often goes better when the other person feels understood first. You might say, "I understand why you see it that way. My experience has been a little different." That sentence is respectful and balanced. Balanced means fair and not extreme. This is a powerful communication pattern because it lowers tension. When tension is lower, people are more open to discussion and less likely to become defensive.
That is a strong final lesson. So today we talked about what active listening is and why it matters for English learners and for everyday life. We covered useful vocabulary like process, cue, paraphrase, context, clarify, empathy, reflect, and tension. We also shared practical tips: stay present, do not interrupt too fast, use verbal cues, ask follow-up questions, paraphrase key ideas, and focus on the main idea instead of panicking about every unknown word. If you practice these habits, your English conversations can become more confident, more natural, and more meaningful. Thanks for listening, and do not forget to subscribe to the English Daily Podcast for more useful episodes.